Welcome to another Pixel Game Maker tutorial. Finally get to dive into some runtime actions now. Let's go to page 1 at the very top. It's called Set, Move Direction, and Move. Some of the namings are a little confusing. One reason why I think a tutorial like this is needed, it really could be called Set, Direction, and Move, and it would actually make more sense. You're setting the direction and move. So let's go to the box and let's put a check mark in there saying that we want this runtime action. Now let's go over to the parameters. So here you're going to set direction and move. And really what's happening is you're setting the direction of the movement. So this could be actually called set direction of movement. And you can grab this black line and you can rotate it around. If you say we want to go to the right, can't quite get to 90, you can actually type in right here the angle and get that flat 90 for the pure right movement. The next parameter is going to be your display direction of the object as it's moving. So you can grab this drop down menu here, and by default it's going to say that you're going to match the direction, the move direction. So if it's a 90-degree angle going right, it's going to play your right facing animation. Now you can also control it with up to the 4 direction of the movements, the left, the right, the down, or the up animation. So it's not quite the full spectrum with the 8 directions, but you at least get the 4 directions. So if you did select, say, up, your object would be moving to the right, but your object animation would be the up facing animation. So for this first example, let's just do the match move direction. And on this last one, this is where you specify the movement distance. And this is in pixels because Pixel Game Maker is pixel movement. So if we were to check this and leave it at 0, then this object wouldn't actually move, but it would change directions because we did say to set the direction. If we unchecked it, then the object would continue moving forever until it couldn't move, and then whatever was in its way got out of its way, it would move again. Or you can specify a distance. You can say 25, for instance. But for now, I'm just going to uncheck it. And let's go and let's try this out. So I'm going to hit OK. We now see that the runtime action is now down in our box. And let's click playtest. And we can see that our player object is moving. It's matching the direction because that's what we asked for. And it's going until it can't move anymore, which it can't move past the screen. I have it set to. So now let's try some other stuff. Let's, for instance, face it up and let's angle it at, like, I don't know, let's grab this and go, say, 300. See what happens there. And on this one, I want it to only go 100 pixels. We'll click OK, and let's click playtest. And you can see that it went 100 pixels in that direction and stopped. And it faced up. So another thing that's important is that you can have your match move display. And say you're going at a weird angle like this, it's going to take the closest one if you're up or left. Say you have a 4-directional sprite, it's going to take the closest one and it will match that. So in my mind, this would take the left facing sprite. So let's see if I'm right there. I might be wrong. Let's click OK. Let's click playtest. And it did. It took the left facing sprite. If you have an 8-directional one, then it will take that diagonal input. The only one that you can't is you can't set the diagonal input on a display direction. So you couldn't set a specific diagonal looking facing animation. All right, so now let's try it with the movement set to 0. So let's put this at 0 or 360 because the up direction can be 0 or 360. we're going to move 0. We just want it to face up. And if we click OK, the default is left. So when we play, it faces up and it doesn't move. All right, so the last thing to consider is that when you do move against an object that is pushable, so let's just say we're going 270 and let's move 100 pixels and click OK. And you saw this earlier, how I kind of pushed that robot out of the way, but this will show you an example that you will push that robot out of the way. And something else that is interesting, let's actually take this off and let's go to playtest. If this object was not to be pushed, if you could not push this object and you ran into it with your pixels, the engine will still count pixels as if you're moving. So for instance, say that you had an event where you moved this object, it hits this enemy, and then shortly after you hit the enemy moves down, and then technically that object can continue. Well, it will only when it hits and stops, those pixel counts will still be going. So if this event takes a long time to get down there, then the player might actually not move anymore because the pixel counts are gone. There's no more to move. If this object moved down really quick, then the player object would continue a little bit as many pixels as it had left to move. So just note that if you specify a movement and the player and that object stops, that movement count is still going technically in the back end. So just some things to keep in mind. And that is pretty much it for the set movement direction. It's definitely got its uses, and it's actually really nice to get a quick direction change on it. And especially if you, like we did in the basics tutorial, if you click on the scene change, and then you can specify the direction just from that local object. Say we go 360 and we hit play, the character should now be facing up. So we will leave this tutorial at that, and hopefully you can put this to use.